Hi guys. I hope you're enjoying your snow days. Fiona and I are gonna read to you. And Harbor's looking at me all sad. Look at this. Harbor. No. She's like, don't forget to say my name too. Alright, so we're gonna keep on going with Hattie. When we left off, Hattie and Wade, Pepper's brother, had played that trick on them. And then her little brother Ben had fallen off the wagon seat and broke his arm. So lots of things happening. Oh, and Mrs. Kinker, she saw her knitting, and the yarn that she was using was the same color as another lady's shawl that had been stolen or that she couldn't find. So that was crazy. This one's titled Later. 6 oxen died yesterday and 1 mule. After having to butcher them where they fell, we kept going. They're too heavy to move and there's no time to bury them. Tall Joe made an announcement at supper time. We must lighten our loads to make it easier on all of our tired animals. Ma said to me, the dresser and our rocker can go, but I will never part with your sister's things. When we pulled out this morning, there was an odd assortment left in our camp. There was a wash tub, an oval mirror, 2 trunks filled with brand new shoes, a piano, and a bird cage. Someone had put several dozen books onto the shelves of a china hutch, neat and tidy like a library. Maybe folks coming behind us will get to enjoy the books, but who has time to read? All of them. Tall Joe caught Mrs. Kinker picking through the items and said, Madam, if your oxen drop dead from all the junk that you're making them pull, I ain't waiting for you or that husband of yours to find a new team. The trail seems to be uphill right now. Today it was our turn to be in front, and I thought, at last, we'll have no dust in front. But the wind was at our backs, so we walked in blowing dirt all day long. My skirt pressed behind my legs, often tripping me. Jake and I took turns riding in the wagon to help Ma. I don't like it one bit inside the wagon because it's so hot inside, stuffy and cramped. But we must keep Ben still so that his arm will heal. Pa said it was a blessing that the bone didn't poke through his skin, else they might have had to amputate it so he didn't get an infection. Poor Benny. He wants to play and run alongside the oxen, but Ma is much too scared for him. A boy in one of the other wagons that we don't know the family, was riding on their sideboard. Nobody knows what happened, but somehow he fell and was then trampled by mules behind them. There was so much dust that it wasn't until 3 wagons passed that they could find him after the dust cleared. We all stopped for an hour. They buried him in the middle of the road so that wolves won't dig him up. We can hear the boy's mother and sisters wailing above the noise of our moving wagons. So much sadness. Along the Sweetwater. Remember, that's that river. Today when I saw Pepper in Gideon's little wagon, she waved me over. Please walk with me, Hattie, she called. I was happy to walk with her again. As Gideon drives, she walks alongside. She's more talkative than ever, which makes me feel good. I think she's glad that we're friends. The next miles of trail twist through ravines and sandy slopes. We were so nervous that we were going to see rattlesnakes everywhere, draped over rocks, coiled in the hot sun. Pa said the west is home to these snakes, so we must just learn to be careful. That's all. Way ahead in the distance, we can see dust from the other campers. They're at least 1 full day away. Mosquitoes are terrible, and now they're also biting flies. My arms are covered with welts that bleed because I can't help but scratch. My sleeves have blood stains, so much that I want to rip away the cloth. They look so disgusting. I wish I had many, many clean dresses, but instead of this old one ragged thing, I just want to feel clean again. Funny, but now I do wear my bonnet, and Pepper wears hers. We were teasing about them before, but now the truth is that our face hurt from sunburn and our skin keeps peeling. The ridge of my nose is so raw that it stings, and every night I rub that axle grease on it, and on my lips too. Hardly don't mind the stink anymore. There was another wedding last night. The husband is a carpenter, the one whose wife died a few weeks ago, before we reached Timney Rock. Now this girl has adopted 3 young sons. Some older women are helping her care for the baby. I feel sorry for this new wife all at once, on a trail, having to learn how to be a mother of these new children. But Ma says that things will probably turn out all right. South Pass. Tall Joe says we've come near 900 miles now. That means that we're almost halfway, only halfway. All of this has happened to Oregon. There are cheers and singing and people shoot their guns. Pot thought crossing the Continental Divide would be treacherous, but the gap here is 12 miles wide, and it's pretty gentle, like a cornfield. The slope is so gradual that we hardly knew where we were. To the north of us, there are the Wind River Mountains covered with beautiful snow. There's a carpet of yellow and blue wildflowers spread between boulders and pine trees, so beautiful. It's sunny, but the air is thin and cold because of the elevation. We're up about 8,000 feet. Women and girls are picking bouquets to hang upside down in our wagons so they'll keep their color while they dry. This way we'll have flowers during our winter in Oregon. They're saving the seeds. Tall Joe says the nights are so cold at South Pass that we must keep going. We will make it. Now we go down the western slope to a campground called Pacific Creek. End of June, Pacific Creek. We camped here for 2 days to rest and to celebrate. It's a wondrous feeling to think that we're finally in the West. Now the rivers and the streams flow to the Pacific Ocean instead of eastward toward the Atlantic. Everyone who was able dipped a cup in the water and held it up for cheer. The fiddlers got busy and soon everybody was dancing. Everyone except my mama. She said not until her feet are in Oregon City will she celebrate. Sorry. Some moments Mama is so grouchy I know for certain I mustn't upset her with news about that beef. For part of the day we shared a campsite with the other campers whom we didn't know. Pepper, Gideon, Wade, and I walked over to all of the other people's wagons because we were curious. There was a fire and there was a roasting side of beef. We saw 3 women carrying plates back and forth, but we didn't see any children. A man came over to us and introduced himself by the odd name of Green Flake, then asked us to please leave, on account of there were people resting. Sandy Creek. Here is where the trail splits. Tall Joe said there's a shortcut heading north that'll save us 7 days, but it's 50 miles of desert, not a single tree, no water or grass for the animals. The days are blistering hot, and the only time to travel is after sundown when it's cooler. Or, he said, the safest is to swing southwest down to Fort Bridger. It'll take us longer, but it avoids the Wyoming desert. Our family had a discussion, and Pa agreed that we'd go with Tall Joe, the safest way, on account of Aunt June might finally have that baby any day now. Both Ma and Mrs. Anderson begged for the safe route. They're afraid of being stranded in the middle of nowhere. After supper, 8 families pulled out heading north across the desert along the sublet cutoff, maybe to reach Oregon a week earlier than the rest of us. We no longer see buffalo or their droppings. Tall Joe says the herds have gone north, and with them, so have the Native Americans. I'm somewhat pleased that we might not run into them anymore, though it is true that they never bothered us. Later, Jake hit Benny with a stick because, he says, Benny threw sand at him, and I scolded them both, and I made them walk the rest of the afternoon right next to me. Sometimes I wish those boys were grown up. Early July. After dark, I walked beyond camp around the circle to the Kinker's wagon. A lantern lit the inside, so I stood back in the shadows to see what I could see. The mister was sound asleep. Matter of fact, he was snoring loudly. But Mrs. Kinker was busy with something in her lap. I stepped closer. She had Benny's blue sweater. She was as quick as you. Please, unraveling that sleeve and rolling the yarn into a ball. I wanted to grab her by the throat. When did she steal Benny's sweater? Anyways, and why? I must tell Ma, even if she won't believe me. I hurried away to find her. At the edge of camp, I saw Pepper's little wagon. Oh, how I missed it. Sorry, lost my spot. She distracted me. She's crunching loudly. You can't hear it, but... I wish that we could watch the stars together and talk like before. I felt more lonely than ever. Evening, Hattie, a voice said from the darkness. Who's there? I asked. Well, come sit with us, honey. And there on a blanket was Mr. and Mrs. Big, leaning against their wagon wheel. We were just enjoying the night sky. Why are you out here by yourself, Hattie? I sat with them, pulling my knees up inside my skirt for warmth as there was a cold breeze. We were facing the west. A smear of pink just above the horizon was all that was left of the sunset. Behind us, inside the circle, were campfires and singing. Folks were warming up for a dance. After a few moments, I spilled out my story about Mrs. Kinker, starting with Ma's silver spoon way back when. They listened. Finally, Mr. Biggs said, "Remember the one with the no legs? That poor woman." With his strong arms, he pushed himself a few inches off the ground and scooted closer to his wife. She spread her shawl over their laps like a blanket. "Hattie," she said, "the Kinkers were our neighbors back in Elm Creek, Missouri. There's something you need to know about them." Mrs. Big then told me that a few days before the families from Elm Creek planned to set out for Oregon, the Kinkers' house caught fire and burned to the ground. Everything they had was lost. All of their supplies, all of their belongings, everything. But worst of all, their 2 grown sons died. These sons were going to drive their wagon west and help them start a new life. It ain't right for her to steal Hattie, but maybe she does so because she's so full of grief and she's just empty inside. For several minutes, we sat silent. The sound of crickets seemed so loud that I was relieved when Mrs. Big spoke again. "Hattie, dear, we need to think very carefully on how to handle this. Let's give it a few days before we decide what to do." When I walked past the campfire back to my own wagon, I began to feel better for having told my story to a grown-up. So I won't upset Ma about it, but now I feel mixed up feelings about them. I still don't like her. Pause now. Interesting. Hey, Fiona. Fiona, you say hi. Come here. Say hi to everybody. Nope. Birds in the snow are more interesting. Bye. See you later. I don't know how to make it stop.